It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA, we are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning.
Hello.
Here we go. Here we go.
Here we go.
Never thought I would see, well, I don't want to say never. I didn't think I would see this so soon.
Okay.
The Central Intelligence Agency has been conducting surveillance flights with drones over Mexico in partnership with Mexico to gather intelligence on cartels and fentanyl laboratories, according to a senior U.S. official. The the Biden administration authorized the use, which the officials said are not armed. Trump is continuing that program, which is being done with coordination with the Mexican government. But the fact is, Trump wants more than just the drones.
Yeah, it's going to have to. Well, it's what you do with the intel.
Right.
That's what will be the key. And the question would be, to what level is the Mexican government going to cooperate in that regard? Because in order to, if you're going to gather this intel, you have to act on the intel that you find. And that's going to require you likely acting within the country of Mexico. You're going to have to be there. We're going to have, I don't know what that entails exactly. It is a monstrous undertaking. And by the way, it's been going on for way too long. The fact that this has grown to this level and we haven't acted before, but something will have to change. Something is going to have to happen. You're going to have to act on this, whatever information you find, whatever intel you gather. There has to be something. And I don't know that you can control all of that from this side of the border is my concern.
As well, this is where you need to get together, because the addition to it is the entire point where Trump wants to use our military in cooperation with their military, or our law enforcement in cooperation with the Mexican Marines, as they call them, to go in and do something about it. That's the part that's being talked about, which is way above what the Biden administration was doing and what the plan would be from the Trump administration. That's what they want, right. Because they're as we now know, they're considered international terrorists.
Yep.
To the United States, which changes the whole ballgame. I want to be complete in my statement there, where I said I never thought we would see this. It's not that we were using the CIA drones. It's the fact that Trump wants to go further with it. He wants the military, and this is the thing. We know what the drones are looking at. And so if these fentanyl labs aren't taken down, that's what the president wants. The president doesn't want what Biden wants, just to monitor them. You know, fentanyl's not as big a problem in Mexico as it is in the United States, but methamphetamine from the cartels is.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what you want. Because think about this, and I told you this, I think, in our pre-show meeting, mid-show meeting, I don't know. One of the biggest things that the United States could help Mexico with is really destabilizing the cartels.
Yeah.
And it takes a couple of things. You need the absolute military might to do it, which would be the Mexican government with the backing of the U.S. government. And the other thing you would need is the same type of RICO laws that we have here, and to use them effectively.
Yeah, it's a goal, certainly, that I think if any administration is capable of doing it, it's the current administration. But it's going to have to be a very consistent effort, and it requires the full cooperation of the Mexican government and military. You get into that, then you're going to also get into the other cartels that are not based in Mexico. They still do exist, but the Mexican cartels are operating in the U.S. They're here on American soil. And this has to be done. They have to be dismantled. And it has to be to a point where there is no incentive. If you ever reached that level of dismantling them, that there is zero incentive for them to reform or try and gain control again. But right now, collectively, they control Mexico and they control the border if we let them. The last administration did, the current administration, not so much. It is about the political will to enforce the border and everything that's going on that's coming across the border. And there's nothing more critical right now than what the cartels control.
Well, I mean, as we know, I mean, we saw what the United States did, the significant damage to the mafia here in the United States. Mm-hmm. Again, you're never going to get rid of all crime. That's impossible. But you get rid of the influence, because when they get that big, you get rid of the influence that they had on government officials.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's what you're trying. That's what you're really trying to do in Mexico.
Right.
You're trying to get the cartels. They're still going to exist in some manner. The drug trade's still going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can do whatever you want. We haven't been able to stop people from doing drugs in the United States.
Yeah, the goal would be to target the actual infrastructure itself, which is, you know, for the DEA, for officials here stateside, has been the goal for many years. They fight for the cartels battle for I-35 because it runs straight through the middle of the country. Right. In terms of distribution. There are things that you want to do to cut off the head of the snake, help to dismantle the infrastructure, and make it extremely difficult for them to remain organized. The existence is always going to be present. It's the criminal element is just going to exist in a society. And as long as there is a drive for people to get high, there's going to be a demand for the product that they bring across the border. Those are the unfortunate and harsh truths that we face every single day. But I think that if this administration does it right, you can dismantle the organizations to the point that it makes it very difficult for them to conduct business in an organized way. Because right now, they have no problem whatsoever.
Right. And because of that, then they have great influence on the government.
Yep.
Of Mexico. And so the greatest gift would be actually to cooperate with the U.S. government.
Right.
In whatever Trump wishes to do. Because Trump's right on this.
Yeah.
With the cartels, how big they have become. You know, the cartels, in my humble opinion, are the government inside the government of Mexico, and absolutely within certain regions of Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you wish to do. And you do it by, you ensure that the leadership, which is a group of people, are constantly under fear, constantly hiding, and you're constantly either arresting or, if they choose to fight it out, killing them, where it never ends, because that's what you have to do in Mexico, because it's the influence on the government. Of course, it's the drug addiction and the deaths and everything else. But the fact is, if you want to lessen that effect, you have to lessen their influence on the Mexican government.
Yeah.
And the regional governments.
Yep.
And city governments.
Right.
That's what you have to do. Because it does no good just to get the intelligence and do nothing about it. It's sort of like you and I have always talked about the 9/11 Commission, where they said, well, we had all this intelligence and we didn't act on the intelligence.
Right.
Well, yeah. You got to act on the intelligence.
Right.
Because remember, the Democrats were screaming, better intelligence, better intelligence. Yeah, but you won't act on it.
Right.
You don't act on the intelligence. The intelligence is useless. And that's why the one of the conclusions, which really wasn't talked about much, we talked about it on the show, was not just to ensure that you had good intelligence and the intelligence made its way to the top, because remember, that was one of the problems. It's the fact that if you get the intelligence, you have to act on it.
Yeah.
And the 9/11 Commission said the problem was they were at war with us. We were not at war with them. So we got the intelligence, but we weren't on a war footing.
Right.
And they were. And that's when they talked about the fact of if you wish to get rid of, or if you wish to lessen the impact of international terrorism, you got to have preemptive strikes. That was a conclusion of the 9/11 Commission.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You actually saw,
Yep.
Trump hitting the Houthis in Yemen.
Mm-hmm.
That's a preemptive strike.
Right. Yeah, there has to be a very clear understanding that there is a collective will of the people of the United States, and there is. Under the last administration, again, it's one thing to monitor with drones, and that gives you some intel. If you're not willing to act on the intel, then it has no value. If you're not willing to use that intel to take that next step, then you're actually wasting taxpayer money gathering the intel. If you're not going to do anything with it, then it has no value. And this administration clearly wants to do something with it. And I wish them all the best. And I've lived in a border state and, in fact, on the border before, and I understand fully what this means. It is a war.
Was this story leaked on purpose?
Maybe.
So, okay, now now we know Biden was doing it, but we weren't doing anything with the intel. Now we're going to do something with the intel. That'd be the next step.
Right. Yeah, we'll see what the response is. I'd like to hear more from the Mexican government. I don't think we're going to hear much, though.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Concerns about parts of Kentucky covered in floods from this past weekend's heavy rains.
Because we had some previous rainfall in that area, we had moistened up soils in Kentucky, and when we put that final round of heavy rain late last week on top of all of that saturated ground, that led to some historic flooding.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says initial flash flooding in tributaries has made its way to main rivers, reaching near record crest in places.
That final storm pushed rivers into top 10 territory all time in much of Kentucky,
with the flooding responsible for multiple fatalities.
All that water will eventually work its way into the Ohio River, which is already running a bit high, but the Ohio itself a little bit broader and deeper in the channel, and so we're not expecting anything like what we've seen on some of these tributary rivers.
Flood recovery efforts, however, could be hampered this week from freezing temperatures and potential snowfall, adding to areas of standing water. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, some great audio on the whole concept of fascist. You'll want to hear this. It's great.
Good.
But here we go. The battle of the chambers, as Fox News is referring, Fox Business is referring it to. The Senate passed. Nobody's really. This is not big news at all. I mean, it should be, but the Senate pressed on with an effort to pass a key agenda for Trump. The Republicans advanced a budget resolution on a 50-47 vote to tackle part of Trump's goals on Tuesday night after moving it through the all-important budget committee last week. It's time to act on a decisive mandate the American people gave Trump in November, securing the border, rebuilding our defense, and unleashing American energy. That starts this week with passing Chairman Lindsey Graham's budget. Let's get it done, said Senate Majority Leader Jon Stewart, wrote in a post on X ahead of the vote. The Senate maneuvered past a procedural hurdle on its preferred Trump budget bill after leapfrogging the House Republicans, who were expected to take the lead in the process. The progress of the Senate GOP's preferred two-pronged budget reconciliation approach adds fuel to the growing dispute between the upper and lower chambers on how to proceed. The House and Senate GOP have favored different ways to use the crucial reconciliation process to achieve Trump's priorities quickly. And up until recent weeks, the lower chamber was expected to take the lead. That's the House. The reconciliation process lowers the threshold to advance a bill in the Senate from 60 to just 51. And with 53-vote majority in the upper chamber, Republicans are poised to push policies through with only support from the GOP. In the Senate, Republicans' plan, the first reconciliation bill would include Trump's priorities for border security, fossil fuel energy, and national defense. The second bill, drawn up later in the year, would focus on extending Trump's tax policies from the Tax Cuts and Job Act. The cuts begin to expire at the end of 2025. House Republicans have long favored one large reconciliation bill that includes all of Trump's agenda items from border security to tax cuts. However, they haven't moved it through yet. That's the problem.
Right, yeah.
And there's going to be problems with that, I believe. And so you do have members of the Senate that look and say, look, we're the ones who do the reconciliation. Here's what we can get through now. Let's get it done now.
Right.
Get this done now and work on the next one. But let's start getting victories now. If you sit there and say, no, we need the victory all at once and don't get it, and this is something we've been talking about here, since Trump won, whether there's going to be one or two bills. So we'll see what happens. Now, what we don't know, which it might be a little bit important to some of us, what the hell is in the bill?
Yeah. Well,
both bills.
If you're going to have a bill, have a point.
Right.
Yeah. I guess we'll see, soon enough. But yeah, that's the question. What are they trying to tackle first? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be important. We talked about, you mentioned the survey that basically a lot of Americans saying, all right, we know that prices aren't going to come down, right away, but willing to give Trump about 6 months or so of a grace period on getting things going with the economy. So does the first bill tackle any of that? And can you deliver that kind of victory to the American public and say, hey, we got this one done, and this is what it means? One of the things about a bill like this is it's going to be important for them to basically campaign and promote it if they actually do get something done. You're going to have to spell out to people, hey, this is going to help you in this way. This is going to affect your life this way. Those benefits are going to have to be heard by the American people. So, but you got to get it done first.
If the House does pass a one-bill reconciliation, though, if they do get it passed, I do believe it's something the Senate has to consider, depending on what's in it, though. Yeah. If they don't have that it starts October 1st, no tax on Social Security, you got to defeat that bill.
Yes. And you're the one-man lobbying group for that.
Yes,
effort.
Because I start
for
collecting October 1st.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Friday Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Well, all right, here we go.
All right.
This is interesting because we found 2 audio cuts on fascism yesterday. And we talk about why Democrats lost. That's one of the reasons they lost.
Yeah.
Trump's a fascist, Trump's a fascist, Trump's a fascist, Trump's a fascist. This is an election about democracy. Well, it's interesting because both the Cambridge Union, which is the debate society, free speech society in Great Britain, and Jon Stewart talked about it. Jon Stewart, in I think this is his After the Cut. This is something that he does when he not on the show, where he has a back and forth with the audience. And one of the audience members asked him, what do you say to your critics that you've gone light on the whole fascist narrative for Trump? Because that's what they believe. He's a fascist. Here it is. Here's the question. Here's Jon Stewart's response.
What do you say to your critics who are saying that you're being light on the fascist message recently?
Oh, I tell my critics, shut up. You're a fascist. No. So I do appreciate that because I understand the desire, but I'm very big on, and I know it's annoying, but specificity and nuance. And I think if you cry fascism at every administrative overreach, even the ones that are constitutionally okay, you will find yourself out of fascism bullets when the time really comes to remind people of, because I think what the media has done over the last 10 years is cry wolf to the point where they numbed everybody. It was an anesthetic. And it got to where, what was the thing they litigated throughout this campaign? He's a fascist. He's a terrible person. Democracy is on the ballot. Guess what lost at the ballot? If you told us democracy is on the ballot, well, democracy got its ass kicked by a majority vote. So I'm very cautious about when to know,
Sorry. Yeah. Democracy got its butt kicked by democracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's why I left. Now, see how he has to be very careful?
Right.
Instead of just coming out and saying, because Trump's not a fascist.
Yeah, that's a high wire act right there. That's what you just heard.
Yeah, and then when he said, for example, the overreaches, even if they're constitutional, well, then it's not an overreach.
Right, exactly.
Those are 2 things I picked up on that.
Yeah, I love that. Even the ones that are constitutional, that's not an overreach.
Right. And I will say this about Stewart. He's also, we had talked about this earlier, how the Democrats now are, they pooled, they got their donors together, all the money people, the Soros people, that we've got to come up with our own way to, control and have more voices online, podcasting, whatever, short videos. We need, and you and I are laughing at them saying, what you're saying is you need more megaphones throwing out the same thing that the public won't buy.
Yeah, right.
The public has rejected you, and what you believe is the public hasn't heard you. But Stewart came out and said, about the whole, because this is I guess the narrative is, well, we need a Joe Rogan too. And as we all know, they had a Joe Rogan.
Right.
But Stewart said this, I believe last week on his podcast. He said exactly what we said. You don't get it. Podcasts don't start really from the top down. They start from the bottom up.
Right. Yeah.
They believe, that, for example, conservative talk radio is controlled by the Republican Party.
That's what they believe.
It's what they believe. It's wrong. Conservative talk radio has not come that way. You and I talked about this earlier. The vast majority of managements I've had are liberal. So the managements didn't say, okay, let's bring in conservative talk show hosts to move our agenda forward.
Right.
They happen to be liberal, and they were told by their bosses, get us stuff that works.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Right.
Get
Something that's commercially viable.
Yeah. Get us something the sales department can sell.
Right.
Yep. Because you may think that our management looks at us as two benevolent, wonderful human beings when simply we are the thing between the commercials that gets the audience to listen to the commercials.
Ouch. That hurt. That hurt. That really hurt.
Did that hurt?
Hurt you? I'm going to go home after the show and tear down the shrine to myself that I just built. Dang it.
Did the truth hurt there?
It did.
But the fact is, I've stated many times now, and 42 years in the business, 36 this year in talk radio, and I'm amazed. I'm still shocked today how companies said, Gary, we'd like to hire you to go on the air and say whatever you feel you want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really? You're gonna trust me?
Are you sure? Because I'll do it.
Are you? Forget about the drug testing. Are you going to analyze my DNA to make sure? I mean,
right.
Have you checked every reference?
Right.
Really? I've always been amazed how companies will come in and say, we want you to get on the air and say whatever the heck you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing is, and we can make money off you. Oh, now you're delusional.
Yeah, right. Good luck with that.
But no, that's the way it works. And in podcasting, the same way. People are being who they want to. People are being individuals. And that's why conservative talk radio succeeded. Because people looked, and I get it all, you and I get it all the time. I don't agree with everything that you say. Well, I never expected that you would.
Right.
But I like your independence, and I like the way that you explain things.
Right.
And we get that all the time. People can sense whether you're being controlled or your message is not genuine. For example, look at the difference between a Levitt and a Karine Jean-Pierre.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody knew she was stalling. She was hesitant. I'm talking about Karine Jean-Pierre because she didn't know if she could sell it.
Right. There's even talk about how they monetize on social media, because there's been complaints in the past about social media and monetizing, and social media would come in and demonetize something. And there are still some pretty clear rules, and they let you know what you can do, what you can't do. But a lot of that, the fear was, well, if you voice your opinion, they come out and automatically deem that misinformation or something like that. And the word is, and I don't engage in that, so I can't tell you firsthand, but the word is that is changing. In terms of opinionated podcast where someone might put something out, again, they're going to check you. I think we might, in fact, see the community notes approach hit YouTube and Instagram and everything else. I think, in fact, it may be part of Instagram as a part of the meta thing. I don't know yet.
But you can look at the Democrats and say, thank you, Democrats, for that.
Right.
Because they were the ones that wanted to censor all information and punish people and intimidate people and threaten people who disagreed from the official narrative that ended up being right.
Yep.
And so the example we have are the Democrats where they were in government, not just attempting, but succeeding in censoring the truth.
Yep.
And so, now you look at it and companies go, well, I'm not going to be censoring stuff because I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. But I want to play this too because this is this came from the Cambridge Union, the debate organization and free speech organization in Great Britain. And this is great. This is Tom Slater here talking about the whole fascist thing with Trump, and some of it's pretty funny. Here we go.
Benito Mussolini, Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump. Il Duce, der Führer, the Donald. The Romans salute, the Sieg Heil, the YMCA dance. The comparison is so absurd it practically debunks itself. Totalitarian control, messianic dictatorship, a cult of racial superiority, paramilitaries crushing the left at home, a Darwinian militaristic struggle abroad, the worship of war and violence, the mechanised attempt, let's not forget, to murder all of Europeans' Jews. If that sounds like America in 2025 to you, then I suggest you leave here and have a nice long lie down. In a second. Trump, I'm silencing all dissent tonight. Trump, you can absolutely say that Trump is illiberal, that he's want to fly off the handle over words that hurt him or democratic votes that do not go his way. But that does not make him a fascist. If he was in the UK, that would make him a Guardian columnist. Or maybe a member of the Green Party. The point that I'm trying to make is that if you stretch the definition of fascism in this respect, it's not just grim. It's not just wrong-headed. It's not just against the academic literature or the dictionary definition. It amounts to plundering some of the darkest moments of human history, exploiting the unique suffering of those who perished in gas chambers and on battlefields in order to score cheap political points. It also reveals an increasingly out-of-touch bourgeois left that has become so detached, so disdainful even, of working-class people, but that whenever they get together and rebel against the establishment, it instantly assumes they have been whipped up into this by some kind of racist, fascistic demagogue, even when many of those voters are black, are Muslim, are Latino, record numbers of whom backed Trump in November last year. That's a strange kind of white supremacy as far as I'm concerned. If we accept this motion, we accept the dilution of fascism and its horrors. We defang that word, we reduce it to a swear word and a smear. We turn the graveyards of the 20th century into a playground in which to have our own political spats. That is an insult to the millions of people who lost their lives to fascism, particularly European Jewry, and I hope you will reject this motion as a consequence. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, very well put and really simply laid out. It kind of goes in line with part of what Jon Stewart was saying. If you're just going to use it in that way, then it has less and less meaning. But in this case, he's pointing out you're also undermining the importance of remembering the victims who have died at the hands of real fascists and real dictators.
Right, and the over-the-top heated rhetoric that if you keep telling someone that the person who is your political opposition would kill you and 6 million other people that agreed with you, when there is no evidence to that, that is absolutely reprehensible. But think about it. It didn't work. But I like where Jon Stewart said democracy got its butt kicked.
Yeah.
By democracy.
Exactly.
But they weren't promoting it. That's the whole point. Nobody bought it. Nobody bought that electing Trump was democracy on the line.
No.
They didn't buy it.
Not for a second.
In fact, it got to the point, and you and I chuckled, when was it, maybe last May or June, when the polls started showing that when it came to saving democracy, more people wanted to vote for Trump because they thought Biden was a bigger threat to democracy.
Right.
So the message actually worked against them. It boomeranged back against them because they were crying wolf.
Well, Kamala Harris became their nominee without getting one vote.
Yeah.
Tell me where the threat to democracy is.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. There's this interesting poll. Majority of Americans believe federal judges abusing their power is a threat to democracy. Rasmussen poll shows, conducted last week, found that 56% of respondents agree that federal judges abusing their power is a threat to democracy, including 35% who strongly agree, and just 36% said they disagree.
The question would be the qualifier. What do you see as abusing their power? How would you define?
Right.
Because that would vary from left to right.
But it does. I think it does show what we have said all along, that the Democrats are still out there saying, well, how could he possibly have won 34 felony convictions? Because they weren't viewed by a significant portion of the voting public as being legit convictions.
Right. Yeah.
They look and say, nope, that's a rogue prosecutor.
Right.
That's a rogue judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are corrupt prosecutors and corrupt judges.
Yep.
They shouldn't be there.
Right.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.